I feel like the theme of this Trump administration is going to be promises made, promises immediately combust in an embarrassing fiery blaze, because Donald Trump has already admitted that the promises that he made on the campaign trail are going to be impossible to achieve. That lowering the cost of groceries and housing not only is not going to happen, but those conditions are actually going to get worse under Donald Trump. Things we repeatedly said, and unfortunately, too many Americans did not listen. And now, not only is Donald Trump admitting the failures of his promises, but so is Elon Musk, and kind of stabbing Donald Trump in the back while admitting he can't own up to his end of a very important bargain for a lot of people. And we are going to get into all of that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really means the world to me. Now, of course, Elon Musk on the campaign trail, and ever since Donald Trump was unfortunately elected, has been talking about DOGE and cutting government spending. And yeah, that's not going to work out in the way that Elon and Donald Trump wanted. And so before we get into what Elon Musk had to say about how he's not going to be able to reach his goal, and Donald Trump's as well, I want to hear an update on Elon's big plan from our friends and some real experts at MSNBC.
President of the American Action Forum, served as a chief economist on President George W. Bush's Council of Economic Advisors, charts and all, and directed the Congressional Budget Office. For the political side, we are joined by Obama campaign veteran Sheikh Komanduri. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good to be here, Ari.
Douglas, you have a lot of experience on this, and as I mentioned, there's good faith, long-running policy debates about spending and all that, and you've served, as I mentioned, Republican administrations. But let's start with the point you made to the New York Times, because that caught our eye, and then whatever else you want to educate us on, that there actually are well-developed entities within the government that deal with this, as opposed to this sort of outside advisory board. Explain.
Well, I think the numbers people heard at the outset, we're going to cut $2 trillion out of the budget, things like that. It's important to remember that literally this group has no authorities. The size of the federal government and the scope of the federal government is determined by the power of the purse, and the Constitution put that in the Congress. The regulatory burden and the staffing and execution agencies runs out of the executive branch and the president, and the Constitution put it there. And this group can advise them, cajole them, plead with them, argue they have better ideas than the ones that are going on right now. That's what think tanks do. Now, I run a think tank, and I understand there's Elon Musk and Doug, and there's a big difference there. But that, in the end, is what they've got. And we have, genuine federal budget problems that will have to be addressed, and they will be addressed by elected officials and those in the administration. The other thing I'd say that about this effort that I've seen so far, well, I say two things. Number one, so far it's all talk. I mean, Ari, we've heard a lot of talk, and I want to see what they do. Their recommendations will be delivered by July 1st, 2026, well over a year away. I'm very curious to see what actually happens. We had a historical precedent, the Grace Commission, similar hype, similar private sector funding. In the end, it accomplished some valuable things like base realignment and closure, but they were relatively small ball. They didn't change the trajectory of the federal government, so they don't have the authority to do that. So I want to see what they do. The second thing is there seems to be an obsession with the head count, how many agents we have, how many federal government employees we have. And, Social Security is not expensive because it has a lot of employees. It's expensive because we have a lot of seniors and we send a lot of checks. And to conflate those, I think, really misses the point. They should use their expertise to fix real things.
Do you think that's a misunderstanding because some of these people, despite their other accomplishments, might be budget rookies? Or do you think that's just sort of a political thing? Because you've done both. You've been in a political environment dealing with real numbers, where politically it somehow appeals to people to simplify and say, we're just going to cut the bureaucrats.
Yeah, it's easy politics to say that. It's the same as saying, oh, we'll just sit down, and it's just like the family sitting down at the kitchen table. The federal budget's, 20% of the of the U.S. economy. It's huge. It's very complicated. And to say it's just like sitting down at the kitchen table is really misleading. To say it's all just the bureaucrats is really misleading. So, you really have to get to the nub of the issue, quite frankly. And one of the things that I have noticed about businessmen coming into government, and I say this lovingly, they're not always my best allies in economic policymaking, is that they don't understand that what they view as an extra cost, a set aside for veterans firms, a set aside for small business, a set aside for female-headed firms, those are policy goals. Those aren't extra costs. Those are things that Congress and administrations deliberately put in there. And so from the private sector viewpoint, they think, oh, my God, this is all wrong. But that's actually not a bug. It's a feature. That's what we wanted to try to accomplish.
Exactly. And you mentioned if you have a space that's largely male-dominated and Congress makes a policy priority of bringing more women in, that's a choice. Or bringing more green jobs in, which is one of the reasons that Tesla got that money that we showed Mitt Romney criticizing.
So yes, the lofty goal of cutting $2 trillion in government spending that Elon Musk promised and attached to Donald Trump's agenda looks like and is not going to happen. And we know where those cuts, of course, would be coming from, because the portion of the government budget that is actual employees and their benefits is around 2.3%. So you're not getting the money out of there. It would be from Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, so Elon could have a bigger tax cut. But this isn't actually going to happen, or at least won't right now, thankfully. And Elon already just had to admit that in the most embarrassing way. Take a look at what he had to say. Musk says DOGE might not be able to cut $2 trillion, actually. Trump ally and co-president Elon Musk promised last year that his so-called Department of Government Efficiency would cut at least $2 trillion from the federal budget. Wednesday, though, he said the real figure may end up only being half that. I think we'll try for $2 trillion. I think that's like the best case outcome, Musk said. But I do think that you kind of have to have some overage. If you try for $2 trillion, you have a good shot at getting $1. Even after lowering expectations to $1 trillion, Musk's goal is no easy feat and could require severe cuts to certain parts of the government. Still, he's found some momentum in Congress, which already has caucuses in both chambers dedicated to working alongside him and DOGE co-leader Vivek Ramaswamy. President-elect Donald Trump, too, has started to mitigate expectations that he made on the campaign trail, telling Time magazine that it will be hard to bring down grocery prices, something he campaigned on often last year, though he believes they will still go down. Look, they got them up. I'd like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard, Trump told Time. Excuses, excuses, excuses. But this is what we've come to expect. Donald Trump is not the type of guy to keep his promises, keep his word, pay his bills, do what he is supposed to, follow the law, for that matter, stay faithful to things he said, women he's married, people he's dating. This is Donald Trump. This is what we have come to expect, and this is what we warned people about. It's why so many already who voted for Donald Trump before he's even been sworn in are starting to regret that decision. Because Trump's not trying to temper expectations. That would be one thing. He's essentially trying to abandon these ideas and promises altogether. He's saying, oh, I know you really like the idea of lower prices, but would you settle for buying Greenland? And the overwhelming answer is no. And this is, again, what we tried to warn people about and why Donald Trump is trying to lower expectations. Just listen to J.D. Vance shell out a whole bunch of nonsense in an interview with Fox right here.
How does President Trump plan to handle these last-minute things, and what are his own executive actions planned, especially with regard to the border on day one?
Yeah, so Shannon, if you step back a little bit, I do think it's important to reiterate that not just on the border, but on a whole host of issues, President Biden has left us an absolute dumpster fire. Now, we're excited to get to work, but we need to be open and honest about the fact that President Biden has not left the next administration in a good place, right? FEMA's funds are depleted. We have a wide open southern border. Oil is going through the roof. Bond yields went from 4.1% to 4.8% in a month. And that's on top of the fact that President Biden has been running the largest peacetime deficits in the history of this country. So we've got a lot of debt, a lot of problems, and a wide open southern border. And thank God that Donald Trump takes office in a week and a half, because we need somebody to actually govern this country effectively.
Now, they are trying to lower expectations, and they are lying in doing so. President Biden left you a terrible economy, a terrible border that's seen lower monthly crossings than multiple points during the Trump administration in the past 6 or 7 months. Really? That's the horrible situation that President Biden and Vice President Harris have left you? And again, We have talked on this show some about Donald Trump's ridiculous musings and postings about Canada, the Panama Canal, Mexico, Greenland, any number of things. But what we always have to do is connect them back to the real through line, that this is in fact a distraction and an effort by Donald Trump and Elon Musk to lower expectations and try to shift the blame, keep accountability out of their corner as they focus on tax cuts and nonsense. This is all a show to them. It's entertainment in an effort to make themselves richer. That is what it's all about. And if they want to talk about the actual state of the country being left to them, listen to President Biden right here.
My administration is leaving the next administration with a very strong hand to play. And we're leaving them in America with more friends and stronger alliances, whose adversaries are weaker and under pressure. An America that once again is leading, uniting countries, setting the agenda, bringing others together behind our plans and visions. An America which is no longer at war, which has made historic investments in American workers, American energies, American factories, generating the strongest economy in the world, which is now in a much better position to win the future against any competitor. These wins are not partisan. They're American. They benefit all Americans and reflect America's endless capacity for leadership and reinvention.
President Biden is leaving a strong economy, a strong border that could have been stronger if Donald Trump didn't blow up the Bipartisan Border Act. Let's never forget that. He is not coming into a situation like President Biden did this time 4 years ago, where everything was coming apart at the seams. We were trying to recover from not only a recession, but bring ourselves out of the COVID pandemic, and in doing so, bring about trust that the government was severely lacking with people to make sure that they would get vaccinated and follow CDC guidelines to make sure that we could actually get out of the pandemic. That's what President Biden accomplished, and mind you, always saw job creation in every year, every month of his presidency while doing so. That's what Donald Trump is inheriting. Like he did in 2016 after the Obama presidency, strength and respect on the world stage. Will he squander it? Yes. And that's why we need to call him out every single day. And we are going to on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.